we're now moving to the section where we have, from 2 different member states, positive examples of the transition from FADN to FSDN, and we're very pleased to have our, in fact, it's have our volunteers. So the first will be from Ireland, which is Trevor Donnellan, and I think I got your name right, but where I always struggle is from Teagasc. Have I managed? Ah. I'll take that. I'll take 8 out of 10. So, Trevor, if you please join us at the front with. Is
this on? Yep. Can you hear me? I'm going to move from behind the podium, and hopefully that's okay for the cameraman. Okay. Good morning, everybody. I've been introduced as being from Teagasc, so I guess I should, just before I start, clarify who Teagasc is, or what Teagasc is. Teagasc is the Irish word for knowledge. It's not actually an acronym, and we are the agricultural research and public advisory body for agriculture in Ireland. I guess one of the reasons why I'm going to be talking to you this morning is that we already have collected some of the data, some of the types of data that are envisaged in FSDN. So I guess I can give a little bit of perspective later if people want that on the challenges involved in expanding the data collection process. I have too many slides. That's not my fault. I won't talk through all of them. Some of them towards the end are just examples of outputs that we've produced, which I would suggest, if you're interested, you go and look at in your own time. So I'm going to talk about, I guess, 4 areas of relevance to the FSDN data set. And as I said at the end, there are some examples you can go and read. So the 4 areas are SWOT analysis, policy evaluation, scenario analysis, and this farm benchmarking topic, which Andrea mentioned earlier in his remarks. So that's basically the structure of the presentation, and that's what I'm going to talk to you about for the next 10 minutes or so. Again, I'm covering territory that Andrea has covered here, just mentioning the fact that this expansion into FSDN from the old FADN will mean new indicators, particularly around environmental and social variables. And I think this is very important, particularly now in the context of national CAP strategic plans, where the demands for data and evidence in terms of what is happening and how it is evolving over time, I think is extremely important. Also, what I would say from a farming perspective is that if we don't collect this data, somebody else will write the story of agriculture for us. So the narratives will be written without data by organizations that may want to cast agriculture in a negative light. So if we have the data ourselves, we have collected the data, then we can write the narrative and support it with the evidence coming through a data set such as this. So just in the context of SWOT analysis, I guess there are 4 areas that we could talk about. The first 2, I guess, are ones we understand because we already have capacity in this area through the economic variables we collect. So issues like farm income analysis, looking at incomes of different sectors or in different regions of the country, identifying areas of agriculture which are vulnerable or particularly weak from an economic point of view, and which might require more targeted interventions from a policy perspective, for example. We can look at the viability of farms, profitability, the extent to which farms are reliant on support payments, and what the implications might be if support payments are changed. Newer ones then are numbers 3 and 4 on this list here, where we pick, with the new data we can collect, we will have capacity in areas such as greenhouse gases, assessment of impacts on water, biodiversity issues. So we can begin to look at the environmental impact of agriculture, which is something that people are obviously hugely concerned about in the current times. And then finally, the social indicators, and again, Andrea has mentioned those a little bit already, so I'm not going to dwell on those. But these are particularly important, I think, as well. I think there also needs to be a lot of emphasis in this new system on how this data can actually be beneficial to farmers and not just a burden. Now, I say, unfortunately, there is a burden, obviously, to the farmers who participate in the data collection process, and we should be really thankful for those, their efforts. And now in the new system as well, there is capacity to incentivize farmers, to compensate them in some way for the fact that they have given of their time very generously to provide us with data for this process. Moving then to CAP policy evaluations, we can look at the effectiveness of the CAP, and we need robust data in order to do that. So we can look at the impact of direct payments, again, using data from FADN. But moving into the sphere of the new data set with FSDN, eco schemes, their impacts, the level of uptake, which types of farms are involved, and also then looking at climate and greenhouse gas mitigation issues, developing metrics that show us how much emissions are produced per hectare or per farm, for example, and other types of environmental metrics also. And we can ultimately begin to see over time whether the CAP is having the desired impact that we would like to see it have from not just an economic point of view, but also an environmental and social context. And again, I'm just reiterating this in this next slide here, some of the things we've looked at in Ireland in recent times under the climate and environmental area would be the impact of slurry application, using different techniques to minimize emissions associated with animal slurries. So looking at not just greenhouse gases, but also ammonia emissions, which is a huge issue. Looking at issues like nitrogen use efficiency on farms and being able to make calculations of those, which are very useful in the context of assessing the impact agriculture can have on water quality. Moving then to the next topic, scenario analysis. FADN, FSDN can provide a critical role here in terms of ex ante policy analysis, helping policymakers to look at the impact or potential impact of future CAP reforms. And we're used to that in the context of maybe the FADN data set as well, because we're interested in looking at the economic impact of some of these changes. But with these new data sets, I think as well, we can develop the depth of that analysis to begin to explore what might be the environmental and social impacts of potential changes in policy as well, and not just exclusively focusing on economic impacts in our scenario analysis. Moving then to the farm benchmarking, I think this is an interesting area and potentially one of the areas where farmers themselves may see this as beneficial. We have the capacity, obviously, already to talk about this from an economic standpoint. So we can look at comparisons between farm systems, so-called cross-sectional analysis. But we can also, as we build up the data set over a number of years, we can look at this temporal change, the changes that are happening within particular farm systems over time. So we can assess whether there is progress being made or whether particular parts of agriculture are moving in a wrong direction, so that we can have more targeted interventions then to try to resolve some of the problems we are concerned about. Looking then at the environmental sustainability here, the capacity to look at, in particular, things like greenhouse gas emissions, or maybe to even develop biodiversity indicators, show us where particular parts of agriculture may be leading other areas or lagging behind in terms of the changes that they're delivering. So we can think also of this as being a mechanism for farmers to have KPIs for particular levels of achievement around particular issues. And we can have tailored KPIs, for example, as well, that are KPIs that make sense for the particular context, for particular farms, in particular countries, in particular regions, not just one global KPI that everybody is trying to pursue, which is maybe no challenge for some farms and an impossibility for others. So, to conclude, before I talk a little bit about the examples, am I okay on time? Just about? Okay. So across those four areas, I think FADN, FSDN, this transition will be indispensable. I'm not suggesting for a moment it will be an easy task to achieve. We started trying to expand our data set in Ireland back in 2013. And, it probably took 6 or 7 years to expand it to the extent that we now have, with a wider set of environmental and social variables. Data is very important. I already made that remark. We live in a world now where sometimes people write narratives about what is happening, and they may have no evidence base for that narrative. If we have data, then I think we can at least begin to tell a story, a credible story, that's backed by factual information about what is actually happening over time. I think it's important that we continue to invest in robust data infrastructure, so the funding that has been put forward by the Commission in this regard, I think is very welcome for the liaison agencies with this responsibility. And I think ultimately we need to grasp this opportunity and leverage this FSDN activity to try and maximize its usefulness for farmers, and I emphasize farmers, and for wider society here in the European Union. So finally, I'm going to talk to you about some publications. We do not call it the Farm Accountancy Data Network in Ireland. We call it the National Farm Survey. That's a long-standing historical name we have on it. So I've just got some examples here that you could take a look at in your own time. The one on the left is a publication of our National Farm Survey results for 2023, which was published last summer. So that's the most recent one we have publicly available. That's very much focused on the traditional FADN type variables and economic focus. The middle one here is quite different, and this is kind of showing where we might be able to get to after 4, 5, 6 years of data collection at FSDN level. So this one has a much deeper interrogation across economic, environmental, and social variables. And I guess what I didn't mention as well is the capacity to interact, to look at how these variables compare with each other. Is an economically strong performing farm a farm that's also performing well from an environmental perspective, for example? The one on the right is less interesting, I guess. It's a plain old document, policy analysis we completed for our government ahead of the most recent CAP reform. We don't have very interesting stories to talk to you about in Ireland in terms of shifts in payments, support payments, because our government adopts the most conservative possible approach in terms of internal convergence, and I don't see that changing very quickly. Here's just a popular article in a journal or a magazine that we call T Research, which is kind of like an Irish Euro Choices, if you know what I mean, talking about to a kind of a policymaker audience and food industry type audience, maybe farmers as well, about these data and why these data are ultimately important. There's a huge resource for those who really want to go there of information about Ireland's CAP strategic plan as it was developed a few years back. So there's an enormous database of documentation there if you really were interested in going there. And then obviously it's all in English, which makes it maybe a little bit more accessible. And then finally here you can take a look at this YouTube video, which is kind of explaining to farmers, what these metrics are. And in this example, we're talking about greenhouse gas emissions, explaining to farmers what their methane and nitrous oxide emissions are, what carbon dioxide equivalents are, this kind of thing. So I think that's it for me. Oh, if you're really stuck, you can watch an entire 1 hour webinar of the report that was published last October. This is the sustainability report. So this is going through the various different metrics, and there's a Q&A session afterwards as well, where we field questions from our audience. So that's pretty much it. That should keep you busy on the train or on the plane on the way home, for those of you who have traveled a long distance. And at that, I'll conclude. Thank you.
So we have our second, I would say, good example, positive example of how the transition is working from FADN to FSDN. So, and this is in Italy, and we will have time, so keep in mind anything that you had about Ireland and Trevor's talk after we've also seen a bit more about Italy. Then we should have some moments before coffee. So, please.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Sonia Marongiu, and I work in the Unity of Policies and Bioeconomy of CREA. CREA is a big research institute in Italy that work in the field of agriculture, every field of agriculture, and our unit is the liaison agency for FADN. So in Italy, the liaison agency is a research center that is it has influenced almost all the history of the survey in Italy. I will present some positive experience with the FSDN data in Italy. Of course, I shared the presentation with my colleague Concetta and with Luca Cesaro. My presentation is divided in 5 points. First of all, I will talk about some characteristics of the survey in Italy, of the FSDN in Italy. Then I will talk about the use of FSDN variables for environmental and social analysis, and also some words about the use that we done for the CAP management, for the evaluation and the monitoring of the common agricultural policies. Some word even on our tools for the farmer. It is a kind of dashboard for farmers, and that it is a tool that we use also for the benchmarking. And finally, some aspect concerning the data sharing. In Italy, the Italian FADN collect more information than the European FADN. We have a higher number of variables with a high level of details for certain variables. And we have also a more complex methodology, because at the end of the survey every year, we make an estimation of the cost and gross margin per production process. So we have also this estimation for each crop and each livestock activity in the farmer. In the table blue, you can see a kind of comparison in terms of number of several categories of variables. So the comparison is made between the European FADN, so the information that are mandatory for the EU regulation, and the Italian FADN. So we collect really a lot of information compared to the European regulation. In the table green, you can see the list. This is FADN, not FSDN. In the green table, you can see which kind of environmental variables we collect. In Italy, we already collect, for instance, information regarding the water volumes of irrigation, or the type of land use, if there is minimum tillage, no tillage, if the farm has cover crops, the altitude in meters of the farm, etc. We collect also social variables. For instance, we collect the whole description of the farmer's family, and this is very important for several kind of analysis. So how many members the family has, the relationship among them, or the off-farm income. We collect also the information regarding the off-farm income, the gender balance of manager, family members, seasonal workers, even the nationality of seasonal workers, the education of all the members, and so on. So there are a set of social variables that can be used to perform this specific analysis. So in Italy, the transition from FADN to FSDN is not extended to all the variables, because we collect already some of them. Why this? Because we are hungry of data. We are a research institute, so we work in the research field, we need data, and that's why we have, during the years, we have add variables and ask directly to the farmer. And we use also this data for feed also the needs of the policy system. Some years ago, we have done an analysis of the use and users of FSDN data in Italy. And this has been very surprising that in Italy, the most important use of FSDN data is for agro-environmental analysis, and followed by territorial analysis, economic analysis, farm management analysis, and so on. In this graph, you can see the use of the data, the most important categories, and the users. The users are mostly the universities, the research institutes, but also the public administration, agricultural organization, and even some advisors or consultants that needs to perform, I don't know, analysis done at farm level. This is very important for us as a research institute. We have really a wide lot of publications, reports, policy brief, dissemination for farmers, advisors, etc. Even the web, we have also wide set of web tools that can be used even by the farmers. Some example of use of environmental data in Italy. For instance, we have used the FNDA data for the evaluation of agrodiversity in the Italian FSDN farms. The objective of this analysis was the classification of FSDN farms in 3 levels of agrodiversity: high, medium, and low, using a selected set of variables that are the crop diversification and crop combination. We collect this kind of data, the number of varieties in the crop, the presence of intercropping, especially in the permanent crops, the presence of woodlands or ecologic focus area, livestock, a combination of animals, and nectar-producing plants. So this is a set of variables very, very easy. Even the indexes has been designed in a very easy way, but at the end we have calculated a global score of agrodiversity for each farm, low, medium, and high, and we have analyzed the economic performance for each level of agrodiversity. This is a very simple analysis, but it has been an interesting starting point for a further research on this field. Other uses, for instance, we collect the data of farm income. So we collect data, as I have already said, regarding the farm's family in terms of components, farm employment, and off-farm income. And we have done also a specific analysis using this variable. The publication is in Italian, but it's very interesting because it stresses the importance in certain, especially in the smallest unit, of the off-farm income on the global farm income, on the global farm revenues. Gender, the incidence of other gainful activities on total farm, the scholarization, and so on, have been also considered in another interesting analysis regarding women in agriculture. We work a lot in this field, the women in agriculture, using FSDN data. This is an interesting analysis made in Lombardia, so in the north of Italy, but it is an example of the use of this variable to perform this kind of analysis. We use also FSDN for the estimation of the carbon footprint at farm level. We have a kind of database where each farm in the FSDN survey has a carbon footprint on the basis of the structure. So it is possible. We have a methodology. The methodology is the ICAI methodology. There is also a publication and even a lot of articles, even in English, regarding this analysis, this methodology. Social aspects. So we collect the information of family members, so the number component of family members. For instance, here, this is an analysis done in Sicily, the south of Italy, comparing, it was a comparison between organic and conventional farms but considering the poverty threshold calculated by ISTAT, by our National Research Institute. And the objective of this analysis was the evaluation of the comparison of net revenues between organic and conventional farming, considering this poverty threshold, just to compare the two situations at national and regional level. The information of the family has been also used in another very interesting analysis regarding the generational renewal performed by the University of Milano. I have not the slide here, but if you want information about that, I can give you even the reference of the publication. It has been very interesting. It's not possible now, normally, because maybe in future with FSDN, but the researcher has done with this analysis thanks to the information on the number of components of family members. So considering the father, the son, and the generational change during the year. We use also FSDN for the evaluation of the common agricultural policies, of rural development programs and rural development policies. We use FSDN data for ex-ante, ex-post analysis, for the quantification of the most important indicators, important for the justification of payments, because in Italy the rural development policies are managed at the regional level. So every region must justify the subsidies at the regional level. The territorial dimension of FSDN for us is crucial in doing that, because every region has to manage the subsidies by themselves. So it is important the territorial level of FSDN for our system. This publication is very interesting. This is a cooperation between one managing authorities in Sicily and the CREA, so the liaison agency. Some years ago, there was a web application, PSA Web. It was a web application based on FSDN methodology that were used by the managing authorities of the rural development program in Sicily to make available for the farmer the farm development plan, because to have access for the investment measure of rural development plans, the farm development plans was mandatory. And they, thanks to this cooperation, this tool was available for the farmer, and it was so a mutual cooperation between the managing authorities and the liaison agency to help a farmer to have access to the subsidies. Some tool for the farmers. We have this dashboard for farmers. It's a web tool. Each farmer in Italy, it is only for farms participating in FSDN. Each farm can have an access to this tool thanks to the identification number plus an individual PIN that is generated by the liaison agency. And thanks to this tool, the farmer can monitor the result of all the accounting years of participation in FSDN, and also have the benchmarking. For instance, here is an example. This farm is in FSDN from 2008 to 2018. The farmer can visualize the trend of economic and financial parameters, and have also several outputs, like for instance, the financial statements in terms of balance sheet and profit and losses, that in Italy, the scheme of the financial statement are the same required by the law. So the form is the legal form and can be used also, I don't know, to ask a funding for the bank or to ask from subsidies. There is also a list of farm indexes that we want to complete in future using FSDN data. So for the moment, the farm indexes are economic, but we want to add even the environmental and the social one. And even to look at a time series of the most important economic results. There is also the possibility of the benchmarking. In this case, the farm can compare the result. The comparison is made between the farm and the average farms of the same group, so with the same farm type and with the same economic dimension, but also with the top farms of the group, with the best farms of the group. So it is a double key to read the results. Finally, the data sharing, the Italian FSDN system offers several examples of data sharing between other systems, but also to the final users. One example of data flow to FSDN, we have an application that is made Class CREA. Class CREA is an application that we use to classify the farms according to the FSDN rule. Data collectors or other subjects or even the farmers can classify the farms on the basis of their characteristics, so the crops on the number of animals. Some section of this tool, some section of the farm register of each farm are integrated in this tool, in the Class CREA. So we can classify the farm using the information of the farm register before to go to the farm, before to disturb the farmer. There was even in the past one survey, CREA. CREA was made under the regulation of the economic accounts for agriculture. We collected the data from REA only for farms with less than 80,000 euros, that is the threshold in Italy. This is not a sharing of data, but it is a sharing of methodology, because we use the same methodology of FSDN to collect the data from REA. The tool was, of course, simplified, but the methodology was the same. Finally, the FSDN data are also shared with final users. We are a research institute. For us, one important thing is to share and use FSDN data. We have several levels of access. The easiest is the data warehouse. It's a public data warehouse. People can enter inside this web space and look to the tables that are already prepared. Then we have an increase in complexity and increasing level of details until the BDR Online. The BDR Online is the most complete database of FSDN in Italy. We give this data to the university only under one agreement. We sign an agreement with the universities. The university can have access to the BDR Online that contain almost all FSDN data. Of course, the most confidential information are not shared with anyone, even with the universities, but the BDR Online is really used from all the universities to publish. And for us, it is very, very important. We are a research institute. We have feedback from the users, a continuous feedback from the users, and this is very important even to improve the survey. Finish. Thank you.